Can you hear me? Okay.
Okay.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, hold on. I'm going to start the meeting real quick. Bienvenidos. Welcome. I call to order the work session for the Beaverton School Board on September 17th, 2024 at 6:25 p.m. I want to note that all 7 board members are present with Ugana online and the rest of us here in person. We have one topic for our brief work session this evening, and that is board goals and evaluation with our facilitator, Erica Lopez. So thank you, Erika, and welcome. We'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I'm standing to be closer to you all because I feel so far away over here. And since we last spoke, maybe a couple weeks ago, one of the items from the retreat that we talked about was your board goals. And we did a little exercise where you put up some ideas of potential goals that you might have. So we're going to go really fast and furious because we have a short time. So what I did is I put all of those sticky notes that you had up into the categories that you placed them. So you had some ideas around budget, around policy, evaluating the superintendent, and then the other area of responsibility was high-level district vision and direction. And so in those 4 areas of your responsibility, you had all of these items that you kind of brainstormed together. So I'm just going to give you maybe like 15 seconds to look those over. So hopefully those look familiar to you all. The other thing I wanted to mention is that in the retreat, Karen and Carrie also shared with you all that there were agenda topics that were going to be planned for the rest of the year. And so some of the items that are on here as possible board goals are actually duplicated in that slide as well. So I just want to show you, this is a slide from the retreat of future agenda topics that are scheduled to be presented to the board. So one of the things I wouldn't want you to do is to duplicate the work of what's already going to be presented to you via the agenda topics and have that be like a goal, because really in the work sessions that you have with the agenda topics, you'll have more opportunity to learn more about the topic and ask questions and more in depth than its actual a board goal is something that you all as a board are going to be working on for the year. So it's just a difference of like where these items fall. So I cross-reference this area of your future agenda topics with the items that you all brainstormed about, and I separated them between, well, what's already going to be covered under a future agenda topic or either a board committee. So you also have, for example, there was an item on there about mental health support and budget allocation. Well, you have a budget committee where you actually work on budget. So that is also an area where you already have a pathway to like address or ask questions about that topic, as opposed to having it be like a goal that you're working on as a board. You also, the other item that I wanted to call out that's different is the evaluation of the superintendent is a process in itself that you already have an established process in the schedule. Within that process, you actually review it and see like, is this what we're going to do this year? Is this how it's going to go in the schedule? So you'll have an opportunity there to change or add or ask questions more within that activity and process that you have. So what's left, you can see, is there's about 5 items that look to be potential items for you to think or consider about having those be potential board goals. And we'll talk a little bit more about those, but I just wanted to also have an opportunity for you all to maybe see if there's something missing that you forgot to mention, that now as you're seeing these items or maybe that needs to be written down or added just for potentially for us to discuss today. One of the things I want you all to remember is that you have a time bound limit to accomplish this goal, right? And last year you had a shorter, maybe I think you only had 2 goals as a board. And reflecting on that, how feasible was it to accomplish how much you put on your plate as a board to do, and also looking at the possibility of how many goals you want to have this year for your board as well. I know that's something, Karen, you wanted to touch on.
Sorry, it's exactly what you just said. It's like we had 2 goals last year, and just thinking about the time that we have and the X number of meetings, and just being mindful of that when we think about, I don't think we could have 5 goals. I think that would be too many. But as we narrow it down, just thinking about what we want to accomplish in the few months that we're together, and with people having lives to balance. So thank you.
Any comments or questions so far on where I've landed after filtering? Yeah, go ahead, Tammy.
Tammy?
I guess I'm curious about the how the goals sort of filtered out from, for example, the SRO has, kind of popped up 3 times as agenda topics or board committee work, and somehow it's not a goal. And I'm just curious, if that reflects its relative import, maybe it's not as important as these goals, or what you're thinking there was. Could we think about some board goal of being reimagine school safety and have, SROs be a part of that. But, especially, I don't know if it's happening in Hillsborough, but I think we're on our 2nd school threat over social media that I'm aware of. And, and just even thinking about how our families and students are feeling is just, it's a lot. And I just feel like it might be part of a bigger conversation, and it's going to involve, wellness and, social work. And I'm just it isn't necessarily just our SROs, but it's that sense of safety that our students and staff feel in our buildings, and just wondering if that could be a board goal, and if having it a board goal, in some way, quote unquote, elevates it to a space where we're okay, it is something that we value, and hopefully we'll be able to work on. And maybe, my fellow board members agree with elevating it or not, I'm not sure. But I'm just I guess that's a question I'm posing to you, is wondering about it kind of showing up 3 times there, and curious about it maybe not showing up as a possible goal.
Yeah, so with the board goals, it's things, like I said, that the board, you all are taking on as work, that you're going to do together as a team, versus this item that was brought in seems like it's going to be part of a future agenda topic. So you're going to have more time to actually learn about it, ask questions about the program, and then they'll probably have a work plan approach to that topic, because it's been brought up multiple times. It'll be part of a work session versus something that you'll measure at the end of you all, how did you all, do, for example, the student rep is an item that you're going to have new, right? Did you create an onboarding or support, right? That's something that you as board members actually can do, and can even evaluate yourselves at the end. The SRO or the safety thing is something that the district is responsible for doing, so you're going to do it as part of your work session work that you do. For us in Hillsborough, when this topic it wasn't a board goal, it was part of our work sessions, because we had our agreement was coming for renewal, so we just added it as whenever it was up for renewal, was part of our work session discussion, and that's where we had the avenue to have conversations about it. But it was more than what we as a board are responsible for is not the program. So I'm trying to focus you all on what you're going to evaluate yourselves at the end of the year that you accomplished. I thought you had, Susan, did you have a question?
Don't forget your microphone.
It's gonna be. It was more about narrowing down our goals, so looking at our goals and what we want to prioritize within that. Is that our next step, Erica?
Yes.
So, I definitely think that I would think that everybody would be in agreement with this, that advocacy at the state level with our legislatures is a major goal this year, since it's a long session and there's a lot of opportunity. So I would want to keep that as a goal. So as we're prioritizing goals for this year.
The other thing I was going to mention is evaluating yourselves at the end of the year. This year, you didn't really have a process of how do we check if what we
Right.
put as a goal we actually accomplished. So that might be something that's more like a foundational for this board and future boards, is that if you have a process. So I actually, it's not on there, but I put that as a recommendation. That might be something that you consider as part of your goal, is to actually have a process for the board to evaluate itself and how often you're going to do that. So I mentioned about, the goals being measurable, attainable, specific, and you are time bound. You should accomplish the goals that you set within this year of your board work. So here are some examples of other boards from around our region and the types of goals that they've established for themselves. Some of them have, like, for example, they had a bond that was coming up. So their goal was really about the board members advocating and really standing behind doing a campaigning, informational campaign for that bond. So depending on what's happening, that's more pressing for you all. For example, this is the first year that you're going to have student reps. That seems like it's something really important to have some foundation on that, of how you will support them. For us in Hillsborough, the first year that we had students, we really focused, one of our goals was around developing a mentorship program, so that us as board members, we were responsible for, let's say, for half of the year, we kind of rotated so that the student rep could ask questions. They knew to go to specific board members, like, I don't understand this, or what does this mean? And we had a plan to support them so they would be successful. So it really is depending on like what is more pressing to you all at the moment. And this is just a reminder of like the criteria questions that you all developed last year when you were trying to figure out how do we dwindle down and figure out what kind of goals we would like. So based on that information, one of the suggestions, I think, this is, like I said, this is the areas, the 5 areas that are on there of potential goals. And I took the liberty of putting just suggestions. If you do 3, like what may be attainable within this year and like are actually going to benefit you for like next year. If you have a bigger goal and you want to evaluate yourselves, it would be great to have that evaluation process down so you know how you're going to do that next year as a board. Legislative advocacy, we know that this is going to be a long session year. And so having those talking points and meeting with your legislators is really important this year. And I know that you all know, but I can't stress enough about how funding is a big issue for us, right? And so that's really pressing. And the other thing that I mentioned for you specifically, I saw, was the student rep. And what does that process look like? How are you all gonna, like, if this is the first year, I'm sure you're gonna discover, you're gonna learn a lot, but having something in place for support, that might be something that you wanna have in place for future time. And we've been refining our process ever since we had our student reps, the mentorship and support that we do, even the application process, the interview selections, it's been ongoing, but we started having some kind of foundational process in place. So this is with the idea and acknowledgement that all those other topics that you did mention are set and scheduled already to be talked about in your agenda work. And this is for you as a board to evaluate yourself if you can do three goals by the end of next year. Questions, comments? How does that sit?
These make sense to me, and I think I just want to reflect back to make sure, as a check for understanding, is the point of board goals are things that we can work on amongst ourselves in a way that is in line with communication rules. That doesn't require us to like have other people do things within the district, and I think that's maybe where, because there's things that we may feel are goals for us to get done in our work that are a district goal, right? That may not be the same thing as these. So I just want to make sure I'm reflecting that back. And I guess a question I would have, in terms of our process time to figuring out an evaluation process, this may not be so much an Erica question as a everybody question. So for a board evaluation process, do we have to think about that within the schedule of our work session meetings, right? That maybe we might need a meeting at some point later in the year to do that, right? So time, the same thing when I brought up the being prepared to have students with us, piece was also the consideration that we do some work or have someone clue us in. All of us are not either teachers or former educators or people who every day spend time with young people. Therefore, I think it's really, really important that we actually get some sort of training or do something, even if it's just a 45-minute exercise around how you work with young people. And so again, that's a time thing. So I just want to highlight or elevate that if we put that as a goal, I think we also have to consider somewhere in the time we have planned, we're going to have to make time for that, either somewhere, wherever that may be. And so just saying that for the record.
Yeah, and I think last year, what you did was a couple of you kind of met and created a proposal and then brought it to the whole board to present, how does this look? It could look something similar for us, our student rep or onboarding mentorship kind of program. We went off and created something and then came back and say, how does this sound to everybody? Is this manageable? Is it also, do we feel like it's enough? And we've been tweaking it, like I said, ever since. But having people kind of go work together and then bring it back to the board was another strategy. We also used work session time sometimes to just have a discussion about the process. So the evaluation, there's so many different ways of boards self-evaluating, not just within yourselves, but allowing the cabinet to provide feedback, or even leadership from the community to provide feedback about how you're doing. So you get a 360. So there's various different ways. That's something that you would have to discuss. And then how often you would want to do it, when would be your first year. That's kind of the thing that at the end of this school year, you would have, this is the process that we're going to do for ourselves to evaluate, and this is where it's going to begin. And that's kind of the deliverable for that goal.
So I just want to say that we used to do board evaluations, self-evaluations, and I don't know how long ago. I know under Becky we did it. I don't remember doing it under Tom. But I just
We
to say
did do
there,
it under Tom as well, I think. But what we came to a realization at when that particular model was probably not the right model, because we have to, we're elected by the community. And the last model we were using with what we called the 360 was the staff was evaluating us, which is different than the community evaluating or ourselves evaluating. So we did look at different models, and we looked at the model that OSBA had at one point that they used for board evaluations, but it was really intense and it didn't quite meet what we were doing and even our goals. So it's in the last year, I think with Tom, it was more of a yes, did we meet it, or no? And so it wasn't, did we accomplish passing a bond? Yes, done. So it wasn't like a.
in the past it was more than that. But I mean, it's in the past. But I'm just saying there might be some work that's already done in terms of looking in the past to see how it was done, so we don't have to necessarily reinvent the wheel. Is what I'm trying to point out.
So for today, Erica, what would be,
Yeah, I mentioned on here that there's these are the suggested goals that I had based on the conversations that we've had, and also, thinking about your time, and what I feel like my recommendation would be of seeing the things that are kind of pressing, but it's ultimately up to you all to build consensus and decide whether or not you want to have these as your goals, and then I'm assuming you would bring them back to adopt them in your next session.
did you have a process in mind of thinking about how we would go about the voting on it, or the conversation, or it's just
Consensus.
conversation between us now?
Yeah, it's just usually how we've done it in the past is consensus building and kind of head nods. Do we agree that this is what we want to do? If we don't, or we want to change something, this is the kind of time opportunity to have those conversations. I had some just suggestions of here are activities that could happen as part of each of those goals, but it's really up to you how you want to develop or accomplish those goals. I just put those on there for reference.
Does anybody have a preference? I mean, is there something, I heard Tammy mention the part about like behavioral health and wellness and safety in general, conversation, and I heard you say in that that's kind of like a work session kind of work because it takes staff time that's a staff job and not a board's job.
Right.
But we can ask for us to have a focus on some of that in our work sessions, and that's why when it was brought up, we had put it in there in the topics that we will be covering, like bullying was another one. It's a topic where it's not board work, it's actually our staff work. And I heard Justice mention that he just kind of was repeating the part of what he heard, repeating back what he heard around, we want to point to things that it's our work and not staff work, and clarified that. So is there anything, of the three that are there, is there anything that you all feel are either missing or that they shouldn't be there? I have the three, like, that stands out. If we were to go with, should we go with three? Is anybody opposed to having three? Can we accomplish? I was just thinking of the legislative piece that our goal last year was to, and Melissa and the team had come up with a bunch of different pieces. I see your hand, Ogana, I'll call you in a second. And how I personally couldn't go to all the different meetings that they were having because everybody was going to try to go to one or two or three. I think I made it to two, and that was challenging because of work schedules and things. But I don't know if we want to do three or if we want to do two. But Ugana, you had your hand up.
Yes, I'm sorry I missed I don't have eyes on Erica's presentation. Can you tell me what those three goals are? I kind of missed it, please.
I'll read them for you, Ghana. Sorry about that. Number 1 is student rep onboarding / support plan. Number 2 is legislative advocacy. And number 3 is board evaluation process / cycle. And these, you can wordsmith these as however you want them to fit for you all. It's just, I just put in the kind of the area of where you're going to focus.
Okay, I think those are great goals to work on. If it's something that time would permit the board, I don't mind us working on all three. But if we must choose two, I would go with the student rep and legislative advocacy. But if we can have all three, that would be fantastic. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Erica.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Justice.
Well, I guess my comment would be, I think these are three, pardon me, three good goals and doable goals that we can manage. We're already underway on the legislative advocacy, and the other ones we can, would be helpful that if we get the board evaluation process cycle updated this year, we won't have to do it. Or it would be working on it, refining it in future years. Mm-hmm. So I'm in support. I don't know if we only have to make a motion, but I am in support of these three goals. Justice.
Thank you. Maybe we'll go through. Susan, any comments?
I'm in support of all three goals. I think they're doable as well.
Melissa?
I like the three goals also, and I appreciate having them now so that when some of us are going to go to the OSBA conference, in my head, I'm going to be looking for breakout sessions that help us maybe find tools to be able to do these three and do networking to help us address these so it's not just on us. We can learn from each other. So I appreciate the timing of it too.
Ugana? Oh, we heard from Sunita.
I agree. I think we can do the three goals this year.
Tammy? Okay. So it sounds like we have three goals, and I'm just clarifying, we need to be in a board meeting to make a motion.
Yeah, right
And
now,
so-
what I'll do is, I think, Carrie, you'll help help, and also like wordsmithing it so it's a little cleaner. Right now, like I said, I just put them up there, but wordsmithing it so that they can be at your next agenda to adopt those.
Okay, so maybe Justice and I could work to bring back something to share with you all, wordsmithing those. And something I was thinking about, our student reps will start soon, is our hope. So I think it's October meeting. So we want to maybe, to get us started, I know our legislative advocacy one, we have a team. So Tammy, Melissa, and Susan are working on that one. I'm wondering, I'm just being practical, but like for board evaluation process cycle, I'm wondering if we can have maybe a couple people that are interested in that part work on it. And then just to get us started, is anybody that's interested in working on that piece of board evaluation process and cycles? Or, oh, Justice, okay.
Yeah, I can help with the student rep on.
You're,
I can help with the first one if needed.
okay.
Yeah.
And I know that Shelley Reggiani is going to be our support staff, I believe, was that right? For student, or is it Carrie?
Todd Corsetti and Jill O'Neill are
Oh.
the facilitators and
Okay.
liaisons for the
So,
students in the process.
maybe we can have Sunita,
Susan wants to be in that.
okay. Or how about if we'll take names and then figure it out, but like, I think it would be good to have like a couple people working on it. And then, what was the other one? If somebody wrote that down, hopefully Sarah wrote that down, because I will not remember what people just told me. What they were. Legislative advocacy, we have a team already on that. So it's Melissa, Susan, and Tammy. And then student rep onboarding, it sounded like we had ¿cómo se llama? Sunita and
Susan.
Justice and Susan are interested in that one. And then the board evaluation process was Justice.
I guess I'd say I'm interested in 1 and 3.
And Ogana, which one are you interested in?
It depends on where you need somebody. I'm more interested in student rep, but if you need someone to be on the broad eval process, I can start there as well.
And maybe we haven't had somebody volunteer for that one yet, so maybe you can help me with that one.
Okay.
Okay, so it sounds like Ogana and I on board evaluation, Melissa, Tammy, Susan on legislative advocacy, and then student rep onboarding would be Justice and Sunita. Did I miss somebody? You were on another one too.
Yeah. Oh, I was just saying if you kind of would prefer to work on student rep, I can help with the board evaluation instead. If we're separating,
She's like going like
Labor.
this, so
Yeah, I got you.
I think she does prefer to
Teamwork.
be on the student one.
you got it.
Susan also said
And
And Susan, yeah. So
Okay,
1,
so-
2, 3, 1, 2. Yeah.
Okay. You got it over there? I think, okay, and if we get it wrong and you don't end up on the one you want to be on, just let us know. It's not, we're trying to exit, not let somebody have an opportunity. Great. So I think the task at hand would be then, and see if I got this right, is to come up with the phrase and then
Wordsmith it, yeah. And
wordsmith a phrase send it to Carrie, and Carrie, or send it to Sarah and Sarah gets it to me, which would be the best process. Send it to me.
I can, one of those slides had some examples. And
Okay.
some of those had like legislative advocacy, and it had it written down, like, what is it that is the goal?
Kind of a SMART goal.
Yeah, so you can kind of see a little bit the style of that written goal. But I'll send those separately so you can have something to
Okay.
draft from.
So let me repeat the task, make sure I got it right. Please correct me if I'm wrong. We will have those teams that we just decided on come back with a suggested goal, and then email those to me, and I might send you a Google Doc where we can just put them so people can see them. Or we can't do that, can we? Yeah. Yes? No?
We can.
No, we can't. No, because that would has to be work that has to happen here in person. Just kidding. So
I
thank
think
you.
something that might be a little easier is maybe Carrie and I can work on wordsmithing something, and then you can review it and see, does this fit?
That would be great.
And then that would be
Present
easier.
it to the board and public.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes it easier. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so we'll get on that. I will say this will help you get out some foundational things out of the way, but also build momentum. Like once you accomplish these goals, it feels really good at the end of the year. You're like, ah, we did something together. So it'll keep building that momentum to then go after bigger goals as a board. So
One clarification question for myself. So if the teams that we just identified wanted to do something before then, like once they see it, then we'll decide on next steps because we'll know what staff will be working with each group. Does that sound right? Did I get that wrong? No, you got it right. Okay, so when we get those back, then we'll match up with our teams that will, staff that will
can
help.
review them.
Great, thank you. Anything else on that? Thank you, Erica, for your time. And with that, we'll bring a close the work session of September, I can't even know where our date is, September 17th at 6:55. We'll take a 5-minute break and be back to start at 7.